Guru Vishnum Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Hamamahe Kavim Kavinam Upavashravastramam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspada Anushrunnoti Dasadaram. Om Mahaganadipataye Namaha. Om Keshwaya Namaha. Om Narayana Namaha. Om Madhvaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Vishnuve Namaha. Matsudaya Namaha. Trimah Vamanaya Namaha. Sridharaya Namaha. Hrishikeshaya Namaha. Padmanabhaya Namaha. Damodaraya Namaha. Sankarshnaya Namaha. Vasudevaya Namaha. Pradyumnaya Namaha. Niruddhaya Namaha. Purushottamaya Adokshaya Namaha. Narasimhaya Namaha. Achyutaya Namaha. Janardhaya Namaha. Upendraya Namaha. Hare Namaha. Sri Krishnaya Namaha. Hari Om. From the devotees, we reached the 58th chapter of Dashamaskanda. In this chapter, we see a description of Lord Krishna married 5 princesses, brides, beginning with the Kalindi, and went to Indraprastha to visit Pandavas. After the Pandavas had completed their incognito exile, Lord Krishna went with Satyaki and other Yadus to see them in Indraprastha. The Pandavas greeted the Lord Krishna and embraced him in great ecstasy. Their new bride Draupadi shyly approached Krishna and bowed down to him. Then the Pandavas properly worshipped and welcomed Satyaki and the Lord's other companions, offering them sitting places. Lord Krishna paid a visit to the Queen Kunti, and after he had offered her his respects, they inquired from each other about their family members. As Kunti Devi recalled the various miseries Duryodhana had inflicted upon her and her sons, she remarked that Krishna was their only protector. You are the well-wisher of the entire universe, she said. And even though you are free from all delusion of mine and another's, you nonetheless reside within the hearts of those who meditate on you constantly, and from within their hearts you destroy all their miseries. Then Yudhishthira told Krishna, only because we executed many pious acts are we able to see your lotus feet, which even great yogis find it impossible to attain. Honored by King Yudhishthira, Sri Krishna happily remained as a guest in Indraprastha for several months. Honored by King Yudhishthira, Sri Krishna happily remained as a guest in Indraprastha for several months. So Yudhishthira honored Krishna, and Krishna happily remained as a guest in Indraprastha for several months. One day, Krishna and Arjuna went hunting in the forest. While bathing in the Yamuna river, they saw a charming young maiden. On Krishna's request, Arjuna went up to the girl and asked who she was. The beautiful maiden replied, I am Kalindi, the daughter of the sun god, hoping to attain Lord Vishnu as my husband. I have been performing severe austerities. I will accept no one else as my husband until he marries me. I will remain in the Yamuna, living in a house my father built for me here. After Arjuna reported all this to Krishna, the omniscient Lord Krishna took Kalindi onto his chariot, and then the 3 of them returned to Yudhishthira's residence. Later, the Pandavas requested Krishna to build them a city, and he did so by having Vishwakarma, the architect of the gods, construct one that is extremely attractive. The Lord satisfied his beloved devotees by remaining with them there for some time. Then, to please Agni, the fire god, Krishna arranged to offer him Khandava forest. The Lord asked Arjuna to burn down the forest and accompanied him as his charioteer. Agni was so satisfied that with the offering that he presented the Arjuna with a Gandiva bow, a team of horses, a chariot, 2 inexhaustible quivers, and armor. While the Khandava forest burned, Arjuna saved a demon named Maya from the blaze. Maya Danava reciprocated by building Arjuna a splendid palace. In this building, Duryodhana would later get a good drenching after mistaking the surface of the pond for a solid floor, thus embarrassing himself. Next, Lord Krishna took permission from Arjuna and his other relatives and went back to Dwaraka with his entourage. There he married Kaulandi. So he married Kaulandi after going back to Dwaraka. Sometime later, he went to Avantipura, where in the presence of many kings, he abducted the king of Avanti's sister Mitravinda, who was very much attracted to him. In the kingdom of Ayodhya lived a devout king named Nagnajit. He had an extraordinary, beautiful, marriageable daughter named Satya or Nagnajiti. The girl's relatives had laid down the stipulation that any man who could subdue a certain group of 7 ferocious bulls would win her hand. When Krishna heard about this princess, he went to Ayodhya with a large contingent of soldiers. King Nagnajit greeted him hospitably and joyfully worshipped him with various offerings. When Satya saw Krishna, she immediately desired him as her husband. And King Nagnajit, understanding his daughter's intention, informed Lord Krishna of his own wish that the Lord and his daughter be married. The king affectionately told the Lord, "You alone would be suitable husband for my daughter, and if you subdue the 7 bulls, you may certainly marry her." Lord Krishna then manifested himself in 7 separate forms and subdued the 7 bulls. King Nagnajit duly presented his daughter to the Lord, together with a dowry of abundant gifts. And the Lord took Satya onto his chariot for the journey back to Dwaraka. Just then, the rival kings who had been defeated by the bulls tried to attack Lord Krishna, but Arjuna easily beat them back, and Krishna proceeded with Nagnajit to Dwaraka. Subsequently, Sri Krishna married Bhadra after abducting her from her Swayamvara ceremony. And he also married Lakshmana, the royal daughter of the king Madra. So these are the marriages, summary of the marriages. Lord Krishna married these 5 princes. And the shloka starts with Shukavacha. Ekada Pandavan Drustam Pratitan Purushottamaha Indraprastam Gatan Sriman Yudhanadi Vrutaha Društva Adamagatam Partha Mukundamakhileshwaram Uttasturya Vadvira Prana Mukhya Vivagatam. Once the supremely opulent personality of Godhead went to Indraprastha to visit the Pandavas, who had again appeared in public. Accompanying the Lord were Yudhanu and other associates. Almost everyone except Lord Krishna and Lord Balarama had thought the Pandavas perished in the fire set by Duryodhana in the house of Lac. Now the Pandavas had appeared again in public, and Krishna was paying them a visit. Društva tamagatam partha mukundamakhileshwaram uttasturya gapadviraha prana mukyamivagatam. When the Pandavas saw the Lord Mukunda had arrived, those heroic sons of Pratha all stood up at once, like the sense of responding to the return of the life air. The metaphor used here is quite poetic. When a person is unconscious, the senses do not function. But when consciousness returns to the body, all the senses spring to life at once and begin functioning. Similarly, the Pandavas all stood up at once, enabled to receive their Lord Sri Krishna. The heroes embraced Lord Achyuta, and the touch of his body freed them of sin. Looking at his affectionate, smiling face, they were overwhelmed with joy. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that since the Pandavas were never sinful, the term anash here refers to the suffering caused by the separation from Krishna. That unhappiness was now vanquished by the Lord's return. After the Lord bowed down to the feet of Yudhishthira and Bhima and firmly embraced Arjuna, he accepted obeisances from the twin brothers Nakula and Sahadeva. Externally, Krishna was the Pandavas' cousin, and their relationship was just like that between the cousin brothers. Because Yudhishthira and Bhima were externally senior to Krishna, the Lord bowed down at their feet, whereas he embraced his prior Arjuna and accepted obeisances from the younger brothers Nakula and Sahadeva. Sometimes inexperienced devotees think it is sinful to honor or bow down to an elder brother in Krishna consciousness. But from the Lord Krishna's example, here we may conclude that offering all respect to senior brother in Krishna consciousness is not sinful, it is acceptable. Faultless Draupadi, the Pandavas' newly married wife, slowly and somewhat timidly approached Lord Krishna, who sat on an exalted seat and offered him her obeisance. Srimati Draupadi was so devoted to Krishna that she herself was called Krishna, which is the feminine form of the name, and Arjuna was also called Krishna because of his devotion to the Lord. Similarly, the devotees of the modern Krishna consciousness movement are often called the Krishnas. So it appears that the custom of addressing Krishna's devotee is also Krishna by his name has a long history. Satyaki also accepted a seat of honor after receiving worship and welcome from the Pandavas and Lord's other companions. Being duly honored, sat down in various places. The Lord then went to see his aunt Queen Kunti. He bowed down to her and she embraced him, her eyes moist with a great affection. Lord Krishna inquired from her and her daughter-in-law Draupadi about their welfare, and they in turn questioned him at length about his relatives in Dwaraka. Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura envisions that as Lord Krishna was sitting on his seat, he saw his aunt Kunti approaching in great eagerness to see him. He then rose at once, quickly went up to her and offered his obeisances, her eyes moistened with extreme love. She embraced him and smelled his head. So, overcome by the love that her throat choked up and her eyes filled with tears, Queen Kunti remembered the many troubles she and her sons had endured. Thus, she addressed Lord Krishna, who appears before his devotees to drive away their distress. My dear Krishna, our welfare, Kunti is telling Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, our welfare was assured only when you remembered us. Your relatives gave us your protection by sending my brother to visit us. For you, the well-wishing friend and supreme soul of the universe, there is never any illusion of us. And then, even so, residing within the hearts of all, you eradicate the sufferings of those who remember you constantly. The intelligent Queen Kunti here points out that even though Lord Krishna is dealing with her affectionately as a relative, he is not compromising his position as the well-wishing soul of the universe. He is not compromising his position as the well-wishing soul of the universe. In other words, the Lord does not play favorites. As he says in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 29th sloka, Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu. I am equal to everyone. I am equal to everyone. So while the Lord reciprocates with all souls, it is natural that those who love him intensely receive his special attention, for they want him and nothing else. So Yudhishthira is telling now, King Yudhishthira said, O Supreme Controller, I do not know what pious deeds we fools have done so that we can see you, whom the masters of yogic perfection rarely see you. Requested by the king to stay with them, the Almighty Lord Krishna remained happily in Indraprastha during the months of the rainy season, giving joy to the eyes of the city's residents. If possible, readers to the Bhagavatam should try to correctly chant the Sanskrit verses, which are exquisitely poetic. These two slokas, 13th and 14th, is very nice sloka. 13th and Ekataratamaarugya Vijayo Vanaradvajam Gandivam Tanuradaya Stono Chakshnaya Sayakau Sakam Krishnena Sannudyo Vihartam Vipinam Mahat Bahuvyala Mrugakirnam Prabhishat Paraviraha Prabhishat Paraviraha. Once Arjuna, the slayer of powerful enemies, donned his armor, mounted his chariot, flying the flag of Hanuman, took up his bow and his two inexhaustible quivers, and went to sport with Lord Krishna in a large forest filled with fierce animals. This incident must have taken place after the burning of the Khandava forest, Khandava Prastha, since Arjuna has now using the Gandiva bow and other weapons he had acquired during that incident. Tatra Avidecharaivragnushan Mahishan Ruran Sharabhangava Yan Bidhan Madgan Harinamba Shashal Kanashalakan. With his arrows, Arjuna shot tigers, boars, and buffalo in that forest, along with the Rurus, Cherabas, and Gavas, and rhinoceros, block deer, and rabbits, and porcupines. A crew of servants carried to King Yudhishthira the slain animals fit to be offered in sacrifice on some special occasion. Then, feeling thirsty and tired, Arjuna went to the bank of the Yamuna. Srila Prabhupada often explained the Kshatriyas or warriors would hunt in the forest for several purposes: to practice their fighting skills, to control the population of ferocious beasts who were a threat to human beings, and to provide animals for Vedic sacrifices. The killed animals would be given new bodies by the power of the sacrifices. Since the priests no longer have that power, the sacrifices would now constitute mere killing and are thus forbidden. Since the priests no longer have that sort of power, the sacrifices would now constitute mere killing and are thus forbidden. In the fourth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we found that the great sage Narada severely chastised King Prachina Bharishat for abusing this principle of authorizing hunting. In fact, the king had become like a modern sportsman who cruelly killed animals as a so-called hobby. After the two Krishnas bathed there, they drank the river's clear water. The great warriors then saw an attractive young girl walking nearby. Sent by his friend Arjuna, approached her, the exceptional young woman who possessed beautiful hips, fine teeth, and lovely face, and inquired from her as follows. Krishna wanted Arjuna to see the deep devotion of this girl, and thus he urged him to make the initial inquiries. Kwa tvam kasyasi sushroni kutomti kirshasai manyetram pradimichanti sarvam kadayasho bane. Arjuna said, "Who are you, O fine-waisted lady? Whose daughter are you? And where do you come from? What are you doing here? I think you must be looking for a husband. Please explain everything, O beautiful one." So that girl is called Kalandi. She's a daughter of sun god, and she is praying for Vishnu to come and marry her. That's what she's doing. Aham devasya saviturdhita patimicheti vishnum varenyam varadam tapam paramastita. Sri Kalindi said, I am the daughter of the sun god. I desire to get as my husband the most excellent and munificent Lord Vishnu, and to that end I am performing severe penances to see Lord Vishnu. As Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti points out, that Srimati Kalindi correctly understood that Lord Vishnu, being the source of all benedictions, is the supreme husband and can thus fulfill all the desires of his wife. Nanyam patim rane veeratamrate sriketanam susyatam me bhagavan mukundo nata samshrayaha. I will accept no husband other than Vishnu, the abode of the goddess of fortune. May that Mukunda, the Supreme Personality, the shelter of the helpless, be pleased with me. The beautiful Kalindi girl here reveals some apprehension. She insists that she will not accept any husband except Lord Vishnu, and she states that he is that shelter for those who have no other master. Since she will accept no other shelter, Krishna must give her shelter. Also, she says, Tusyatam me sa Bhagavan. Tusyate me sa Bhagavan. May that Supreme Lord Vishnu be pleased with me. This is her prayer. As Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that although Kalindi is a young, helpless girl staying in a secluded place, she is not afraid. This staunch faith in and devotion to Lord Krishna or Vishnu is ideal Krishna consciousness, and Srimati Kalindi desires will soon be fulfilled. I am known as Kalindi, and I live in a mansion my father built for me within the water of the Yamuna. There I will stay until I meet Lord Achyuta. Since Kalindi was beloved child of the sun god himself, who would dare disturb her? From this incident, we can appreciate the beautiful spiritual processes executed in previous ages by the great souls. Unlike the so-called love in the worldly love affairs, beautiful Kalindi's love for Lord Krishna was pure and perfect. Even though Kalindi was a tender young girl, her determination to marry Krishna was so strong that she arranged for her father to build her a house in the Yamuna where she could perform severe austerities until the day her beloved come to see her. Shuka Mahaswami is telling continued story to Parikshit Maharaj. Arjuna repeated all this to Lord Vasudeva, who was already there, aware of it. The Lord then took Kalindi onto his chariot and went back to see King Yudhishthira in the Hastinapura palace. Yataiva Krishnaha sandishtaha parthanam paramadbhutam karayamasa nagaram vichitram vishwakarmana. Describing the previous incident, Shukadeva Mahaswami said, upon the request of the Pandavas, Lord Krishna had Vishwakarma build them a most wonderful and amazing palace. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti mentions that this city was constructed before the burning of the Khandava forest, and hence before the Lord found his bride Kalindi. The Supreme Lord stayed in the city for some time to please his devotees. On one occasion, Sri Krishna wanted to give the Khandava forest as a gift to Agni, and so the Lord became Arjuna's charioteer. Srila Jiva Goswami explains the sequence of events that occurred during the Lord Krishna's stay within the Pandavas. He states that the Khandava forest was burnt, then Kalindi was found, then the city was constructed, and then the assembly hall was presented to the Pandavas. Being pleased, O King Lord Agni presented Arjuna with a bow, a set of white horses, a chariot, a pair of inexhaustible quivers, and armor that no fighter could pierce with weapons. Mayascha mochite bhakne sabam sakyamupahharat yasmin duryodanasya sidjala stala drishubhramaha. When the demon Maya was saved from the fire by his friend Arjuna, Maya presented him with an assembly hall in which Duryodhana would later mistake water for a solid floor. Then Lord Krishna, given leave by Arjuna and other well-wishing relatives and friends, returned to Dwarka with Satyaki and the rest of his entourage. The supremely auspicious Lord Krishna then married Kalindi on a day when the season, the lunar asterism, and the configurations of the sun and other heavenly bodies were all propitious. In this way, he brought the greatest pleasure to his devotees. Vindhya and Anuvindhya, who shared the throne of Avanti, were followers of Duryodhana. Followers of Duryodhanas. When the time came for their sister Mitravinda to select her husband in the Swayamvara ceremony, they forbade her to choose Krishna, although she was attracted to him. The feelings of enmity between the Kurus and Pandavas were so strong that Mitravinda's brothers, out of friendship for Duryodhana, forbade the young maiden to accept Krishna as her husband. Although Mitravinda wanted to marry Krishna. My dear King Lord Krishna forcibly took away Princess Mitravinda, the daughter of his aunt Rajadi Devi, before the eyes of the rival kings. O King Nagnajit, the very pious king of Kausalya, had a lovely daughter named Satya or Nagnajiti. The kings who came as suitors were not allowed to marry her unless they could subdue 7 sharp-horned bulls. These bulls were extremely vicious and uncontrollable. They could not tolerate even the smell of warriors. When Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of Vaishnavas, heard of princess who has to be won by the conqueror of the bulls, he went to the capital Kausalya with a large army. The king of Kosala, pleased to see Lord Krishna, worshipped him by rising from his throne and offering him a seat of honor, substantial gifts. Lord Krishna also greeted the king respectively. When the king's daughter saw the most agreeable suitor arrive, she immediately desired to have him. The Lord of Goddess Rama, she prayed, may he become my husband. If I have kept my oaths, may the sacred fire bring about the fulfillment of my hopes. Yatpada-pankaj-rajah shirasa-bibharti Srirabjabah sagirashah sahalokapalai Leelatano swakreta setu paripsayeshah Kale dadatasa bhagavan mamakena tushet. Goddess Lakshmi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the rulers of the various planets placed the dust of his lotus feet on their heads. And to protect the codes of religion which he was created, he assumes the pastime incarnations at various times. How many? How may that Supreme Personality of Godhead become pleased with me? Architam punarityaha Narayana Jagatpate Atmanandena Purnasya Karavani Kimalpakaha. King Nagnajit first worshipped the Lord properly and then addressed him, O Narayana, Lord of the universe, you are full in your own spiritual pleasure. Therefore, what can this insignificant person do for you? Shukavacha Tamaha Bhagavan Krishtaha कृतासान परिग्रह मेघगंभीरया वाचा संस्मितं कुरु नंदन संस्मितं कुरु नंदन. Shukra Maharshi says, O beloved descendant of Kuru, that is Parikshit Maharaj, the Supreme Lord was pleased, and after accepting comfortable seat, he smiled and addressed the king in a voice as deep as the rumbling of a cloud. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. Lord Krishna says, O ruler of men, learned authorities condemn begging for a person in the royal order who is executing his religious duties. Even so, desiring your friendship, I ask you for your daughter, though we offer no gifts in exchange. Raja Vacha. So the king is replying to Lord Krishna. The king said, My lord, we could be a better who could be a better husband for my daughter than you, the exclusive abode of all transcendental qualities? On your body, the goddess of fortune herself resides, never leaving you for any reason. But to ascertain the proper husband for my daughter, O chief of the Satudas, we previously set a condition to test the prowess of her suitors. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti, the king's actual purpose of setting up the test was to obtain Sri Krishna as his son-in-law, since only he could subdue the bulls. Without such a test, it could have been difficult for Nagnajit to refuse the many apparently qualified princes and kings who came to ask for his daughter hand in marriage. These 7 wild bulls are impossible to tame. O hero, they have defeated many princes, breaking their limbs. Yadi me nigrahita swasta eva idunandana varo bhavana bhimito duhiturme sriyapate duhiturme sriyapate. If you subdue them, O descendant of Yadu, you will certainly be the appropriate bridegroom for my daughter, O Lord of Sri. Upon hearing these terms, the Lord tightened his clothing, expanded himself into 7 forms, and easily subdued the bulls. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the Lord Krishna expanded himself into 7 forms, not only to playfully defeat the 7 bulls, but also to show Princess Satya that she could not have to compete with his other queens, since he would enjoy with all of them simultaneously. Lord Sauri tied up the bulls, whose pride and strength were now broken, and pulled them with the ropes, just as a child playfully pulls wooden toy bulls. Tataha pritaha sutam raja dadau krishnaya vismataha tam pradigrishnadagman vidhivatsadrishim prabhu. Then King Nagnajit, pleased and astonished, presented his daughter to Lord Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead accepted this suitable bride in the proper Vedic function. The word Sadarsham indicates that the lovely princess was fitting bride for the Lord because she possessed wonderful transcendental qualities that completed his. As Srila Prabhupada Swami King Nagnajit was certainly astonished at the many extraordinary events suddenly taking place in his life. The king's wife felt the greatest ecstasy upon attaining Lord Krishna as the dear husband of the royal princess, and a mood of a great festive arose. Conch shells, horns, drums resounded along with the vocal and instrumental music and the sounds of Brahmes invoking blessings. The joyful men and women adorned themselves with fine clothing and garments. As the dowry, powerful King Nagrajit gave 10,000 cows, 3,000 young maidservants, wearing golden ornaments on their legs and jewels. Bedecked in fine clothing, 9,000 elephants, 100 times as many chariots as elephants, 100 times as many horses as chariots, and 100 times as many manservants as horses. Dampati Ratamaropya Mahatya Senaya Vrutau Sneha Prakinna Hrudayo Yapayamasa Kosalaha. The king Kosala, his heart melting with affection, had the bride and groom seated on their chariot, and then he sent them on their way surrounded by a great army. The king of Kosala, his heart melting with affection, had the bride and groom seated on their chariot, and then he sent them on their way surrounded by a great army. When intolerant kings who had been rival suitors heard what had happened, they tried to stop Lord Krishna on the road as he took his bride home. But just as the bulls had broken the king's strength before, the Yadu warriors broke it now. Arjuna, the wielder of the Gandiva bow, was always eager to please his friend Krishna, and thus he drove back those opponents who were shooting torrents of arrows at the Lord. He did this just as a lion drives away insignificant animals. So Arjuna was so strong, and he was able to send the Krishna's enemy back from this struggle. Lord Krishna, Devaki Sutta, the chief of Yadus, then took his dowry and Satya to his Dwaraka palace and continued to live there happily. Bhadra was a princess of the Kaikeyi kingdom and the daughter of Lord Krishna's paternal aunt Shrutakirti. The Lord married Bhadra when her brothers, headed by Santardana, offered her to him. Bhadra's brother Santadharma offered her to him. Shrutva tadurrupa padayantu patikanyakanyakaya bhagnavirya sudharmarsha yudurbho go vrishepura. Then the Lord married Lakshmana, the daughter of the king of Madra. Krishna appeared alone at her Swayamvara ceremony and took her away just as Garuda once stole the demigod's nectar. Anaschaiva vidam bharya Krishnasyasan sahasrajaha bhaumo hatva tannirodha davruta shama Darshana. Thus ends the 58th chapter of Mahabharata Purana, and Lord Krishna married 5 princes. The next chapter is 59th. Iti Srimad Bhagavate Purane Paramahamsam Samhitayam Dashamaskande Uttararde Ashtama Vishodvaha Namo Namos Papanchadhartanodhyaya. 58th chapter finished. Now the 59th chapter mentions about Narakasura Samhara and married 16,000 girls in Sri Krishna Vivaha. Najovacha. Lord Krishna also acquired thousands of other wives equal to those when he killed Bhoumasura and freed the beautiful maidens the demon was holding captive. The end. So we will start the 59th chapter now. The killing of the demon Naraka. This chapter tells how Lord Krishna killed Narakasura, the son of the earth goddess Bhudevi, and married the thousands of maidens the demon had kidnapped. It also describes how the Lord stole the Parijata tree from heaven and how he behaved like an ordinary householder in each of his palaces. After Narakasura stole Lord Varuna's umbrella, Mother Aditi's earrings, and the playground of the gods known as Maniparvata, Indra went to Dwaraka and described the demon's transgressions to Lord Krishna. Together with the Queen Satyabhama, Lord mounted his carrier Garuda and traveled to the capital of Narakasura's kingdom. On a field outside the city, he decapitated the demon Mura with his disc, Chakrayuda. Lord Krishna used this Chakrayuda to kill Then he fought Mura's 7 sons and sent them all to the abode of death. After which Narakasura himself entered the battlefield on the back of the elephant. Naraka threw his Shakti lance at Sri Krishna, but the weapon proved ineffective, and the Lord cut the demon's entire army to pieces. Finally, with his sharp-edged disc, Krishna cut off Narakasura's head. The earth goddess Prithvi, Bhumata, then approached Lord Krishna and gave him the various items of Narakasura had stolen. She offered prayers to the Lord and presented Naraka's frightened son, to Lord Krishna's lotus feet. After pacifying the demon's son, Krishna entered Narakasura's palace, where he found 16,100 young women. As soon as they caught sight of the Lord, they all decided to accept him as their husband. The Lord sent them to Dwaraka along with a great quantity of treasure, and then went with Queen Satyabhama to the abode of Indra. There he returned Aditi's earrings, and Indra and his wife Sachidevi worshipped him. On Satyabhama's request, Lord Krishna uprooted the heavenly Parijata tree and put it on the back of Garuda after defeating Indra and the other gods who opposed his taking away the tree. Krishna returned with the Queen Satyabhama to Dwaraka, where he planted the tree in the garden of adjacent to Satyabhama's palace. Indra had originally come to the Lord Krishna offering obeisances and begging him to kill Narakasura. But afterwards, when his business had accomplished, he quarreled with that of Lord. The gods are prone to anger because Indra had originally come to Lord Krishna offering obeisances and begging him to kill Narakasura. But afterwards, when his business had been accomplished, he quarreled with the Lord. The demigods, the other gods, are prone to anger because they become intoxicated with the pride in their opulence. The infallible Supreme Lord manifested himself in 16,100 separate forms and married each of the 16,100 brides. Separate forms and married each of the 16,100 brides in a different temple. He took up the required activities of household life, just like an ordinary person, accepting various kinds of service from each of his many wives. That is the summary of the chapter. Now the shloka starts with Shukavacha, Indrena Hruta Chitrena, Hruta Kundala Bandhana, Hruta Amaradhistanena, Nyapito Bhaumachetistam, Sabaryo Garuda Rudaha, Pragmoshitapuram Yayu, Pragjotishapuram Sayu. Shuka Maharshi is telling the first shloka of the 58th chapter, 59th chapter now. King Parikshit said, he was Bhoumasura, he who kidnapped so many women, killed by the Supreme Lord. Please narrate this adventure of Lord Shrangadhanwas. Shuka Uvacha. Indrena Hrutachyatrena Hrutakundarabandhana bandhana Hrutaamaradristanena Nyamito Bhoumachechitam Savaryo Garudarudaha Pragmoti Puroyayo Giridurge Shasta Durgairja Lagna Niladurgayam Marupashayat Krupto Naindrasravata Adbatam Avratam Savratam Avratam. Shuka Maharshi is telling, after Bhoumasura had stolen the earrings belonging to the Indra's mother, along with Varuna's umbrella and the demigods' playground at the peak of the Madura mountain, Indra went to her Lord Krishna and informed him of this mistake. The Lord, taking his wife Satyabhama with him, then rode on Garuda to Pragyotsa, which was surrounded on all sides by fortifications consisting of Lord, taking his wife Satyabhama with him, then rode on Garuda to Pragyotsa, which was surrounded on all sides by fortifications consisting of hills, unmanned weapons, water, fire, wind, and by obstructions of Mura. Achyutas have explained in the various plausible ways why Lord Krishna took his wife Satyabhama with him. Srila Sridhara Swami begins by saying that the Lord wanted to give his adventurous wife a novel experience and thus took her to the scene of this extraordinary battle. Also, Lord Krishna had once granted the blessings to Bhumi, the earth goddess, that he would not kill her demonic son without Also, Lord Krishna had once granted the blessings to Bhumata, Bhudevi, the earth goddess, that he would not kill her demoniac son without her permission. Since Bhudevi is an expansion of Satyabhama, the later would authorize Krishna to do the dreadful action. Since Bhumata is an expansion of Satyabhama, the later could authorize Krishna to do the needful with the unusually nasty Bhoumasura. Finally, Satyabhama had been miffed when Narada Muni brought a celestial Parijata flower to Queen Rukmini to pacify Satyabhama. Lord Krishna had promised her, I will give you a whole tree of these flowers. And thus the Lord secluded this procurement of a heavenly planet. Even nowadays, devoted husbands take their wives shopping, and thus Lord Krishna took Satyabhama to the heavenly planets to get heavenly tree as well as retrieve the gods of Bhoumasura who had stolen and returned them to their rightful owners. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti notes that in the heat of battle, Queen Satyabhama would naturally become anxious of Lord Krishna's safety and pray for the battle to end. Thus, she would readily give permission to Krishna to kill the son of her expansion of Bhumata. With his club, the Lord broke through the rock fortifications. With his arrows, the weapon fortifications. With his disc, the fire, water, and the wind fortifications. And with his sword, the Mura Pacha cables. Shankanadena yatrani hridayani manisvinam prakaram gadaya gurya nirbabhede gadadharaha nirbabhede gadadharaha Shankanadena yantrani hridayani manisvinam prakaram gadaya gurya nirbabheda gadadharaha nirbibheda gadadharaha. With the sound of his conch shell, Lord Gangadhara then shattered the magic seals of the fortress, along with the hearts of its brave defenders. And with his heavy club, he demolished the surrounding earthen ramparts. Panchadanmim Shrutva Yugantasana Vishanam Muraha Shayana Uttasto Detya Panchashirajalat. Shining with the blinding, terrible effulgence of the sun's fire at the end of a millennium, Mura seemed to be swallowing up the three worlds with his 5 mouths. He lifted up his trident and fell upon Garuda, the son of Taraksha, like an attacking snake. Mura whirled his trident and then hurled it fiercely on Garuda, roaring from all 5 mouths. The sound filled with earth and sky, all directions, and the limits of outer space until it reverberated against the very shell of the universe. Then with the 2 arrows, Lord Hari struck the trident flying towards Garuda and broke it into 3 pieces. Next, the Lord hit Mura's face with several arrows, and the demon angrily hurled his club at the Lord. As Mura's club sped toward him on the battlefield, Lord Gadagraja intercepted it with Lord Gadagraja, that means Gada Prahar, intercepted it with his own and broke it into thousands of pieces. Mura then raised his arms high and rushed at the unconquerable Lord, who easily slid off his heads with his disc weapon. Lifeless Mura's decapitated body fell into the water like a mountain whose peak has been severed. The demon's 7 sons, enraged by their father's death, prepared to retaliate. Lifeless Mura's decapitated body fell into the water like the fierce warriors furiously attacked the invincible Lord Krishna with arrows, swords, clubs, spears, lances, and tridents. But the Supreme Lord, with unfailing prowess, cut his mountain of weapons into tiny pieces with arrows. Tan Pita Mukyananayadya Mokshayam Nikruto Shishra Bhujangri Varnamana Stanika Panuchita Chakrasayakai Statavirastan Rakodara Sutaha. The Lord severed the heads, thighs, arms, legs, and armor of these opponents led by Pita and sent them all to the abode of Yamaraja. Narakasura, the son of the earth, could not contain his fury when he saw the fate of his military leader. The Lord severed the heads, thighs, arms, legs, and armor of these opponents led by Pita, and sent them all to the abode of Yamaraja. Narakasura, the son of earth, could not contain his fury when he saw fate of his military leaders. Thus he went out of citadel with elephants born from the milk ocean, who were excluding Maya from their foreheads out of excitement. Lord Krishna and his wife, mounted upon Garuda, looked like a cloud Lord Krishna and his wife mounted upon Garuda looked like a cloud with a lightning sitting above the sun. Seeing the Lord, Bhuma released his sinful reactions. Bhuma released his Shatagni weapon at him, whereupon all Bhuma's soldiers simultaneously attacked with their weapons. At that moment, Lord Gadagarja shot his sharp arrows at Bhoumasura's army. These arrows displaying variegated feathers Bhoumasura's army. These arrows displaying variegated feathers soon reduced that army to a mass of bodies with severed arms, thighs, and necks. The lords similarly killed the opposing horses and elephants. Lord Hari then struck down all the missiles and weapons the enemy soldiers threw at him. O hero of the Kurus, destroying each and every one with 3 sharp arrows. Meanwhile, Garuda, as he carried the Lord, struck the enemy's elephants with his wings. Beaten by Garuda's wings, beak, and talons, the elephants fled back into the city, leaving Narakasura alone on the battlefield to oppose Krishna. Drishtva vidravitam senem garudernaaditam sukam tam bhumau praharachakta praja pratihato yataha nakam patataya viddho malahata ivadvipaha. Seeing his army driven back and tormented by Garuda, Bhoumasura attacked him with his spear, which had once defeated Lord Indra's surrender bolt, but though struck by the mighty weapon, Garuda was not shaken. Indeed, he was like an elephant hit with a flower garland. Bhoumasura, frustrated in all his attempts, took up his trident to kill Lord Krishna. But even before he could release it, the Lord cut off his head with his razor-sharp chakrayuda, as the demon sat stop his elephant. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti, as Bhuma raised his invincible trident, Satyabhama, sitting in the Garuda with no heart and faith. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti, as Bhoumasura raised his invincible trident, Satyabhama, sitting on the Garuda with her Lord, said to Krishna, "Kill him right away," and Krishna did just that. Fallen on the ground, Bhoumasura's head shone brilliantly decorated as it was with earrings and an attractive helmet. As cries of "Alas, alas," and well done, aroused the sages of principal demigods, worshipped the Lord Mukunda by showering him with the flower garlands. The goddess of the earth then approached Lord Krishna and presented him with Aditi's earrings, which were made of glowing gold inlaid with shining jewels. She also gave him Vaijayanti flower garland, Aruna's umbrella, and the peak of Mandara mountain. O king, after bowing down to him and then standing with joined palms, the goddess, her mind filled with devotion, began to praise the Lord of the universe, whom the best demigods worship. So Bhumata is coming to the war field where his son is killed. Bhumi Urvacha Namaste Deva Devesha Shanka Chakra Gadadharaha Bhaktocho Patta Rupaya Paramatman Namostute. This is the prayer of Bhudevi to Lord Krishna. Namaste Deva Devesha Shanka Chakra Gadadharaha Bhaktecho Patta Rupaya Paramatman Namostute. Goddess Bhumi, Bhudevi said, "Obeisance unto you, O Lord of the chief gods, a holder of the conch shell and discant club, O Supreme Soul, within the heart you assume your various forms to fulfill your devotees' desire." Excuse me. "My respectable obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with the garlands of lotus flower, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotus." Queen Kunti offered the same prayer which is found in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8, text 22. The synonyms of translation given here are taken from Srila Prabhupada's rendering of that text. We may also note that although Kunti's prayer occurs early in the Bhagavatam, she offered it many years after the incident described here. "Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Vishnuve Purushaya Divijaya Purnabodhaya Te Namaha. Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Vishnuve Purushaya Divijaya Purnabodhaya Te Namaha." Devotees can chant this sort of shlokas in prayer room occasionally because it looks very nice. "Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Vishnuve Purushaya Divijaya Purnabodhaya Te Namaha." Obeisance unto you, the Supreme Lord Vasudeva, Vishnu, the primeval person, the original seed. Obeisance unto you, the omniscient one. Obeisance unto you of unlimited energies, the unborn progenitor of this universe, the absolute. O soul of the high and low, O soul of the created elements, pervading supreme soul, obeisance unto you. "Tvam vai sisruksho raja utkatam prabho tamo nirodaya vibhashya samvrutaha sthanaya sattvam jagato jagatpate kalaha pradhanam purusho bhavan paraha." Pradhanam purusham bhavan paraha. Desiring to create, O unborn master, you increase and then assume the mode of passion. You do likewise with the mode of ignorance when you wish to annihilate the universe, and with goodness when you wish to maintain it. Nonetheless, you remain uncovered by these modes. You are the time, the pradhana and purana. You are the time, the pradhana and the puranas. O Lord of the universe, yet still you are separate and distinct. The word Jagataha in the third line of this verse indicates that the functions of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation are here mentioned in a cosmic context. The word Utkatam indicates that when a particular function is being carried out, whether universal creation, maintenance, or annihilation, particular material quality associated with that function becomes predominant. "Aham payo jyotiratanulo nabo matrani devamana indriyani karta mahanitya kilam characharam tvaya dvitiye bhaganmaya brahmaha." This is the illusion that the earth, water, fire, air, ether, sense objects, demigods, gods, and mind, the senses, false ego, and the total material energy exist independent of you. In fact, they are all within you, my Lord, who are one without a second. The earth goddess Bhudevi, in her prayers, directly touches upon the subtleties of transcendental philosophy, clarifying that although the Supreme Lord is unequal, distinct from his creation has no independent existence and always rests with him. Thus, the Lord and his creation are simultaneously one and different, as explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago. To say that everything is God without any distinction is meaningless, since nothing can act like God. Dogs, shoes, and human beings are hardly omnipotent, omniscient, nor do they create the universe. On the other hand, there is a real sense in which all things are one, for everything is a part of the same supreme absolute reality. Lord Chaitanya has given the very useful analogy of the sun and the sun rays. The sun and its sunshine are one reality, for the sun is the celestial body that shines. On the other hand, one certainly distinguishes between the sun globe and the sun rays. Thus, God's simultaneously oneness with and difference from his creation is the final and satisfying explanation of reality. All that exists is the Lord's potency, and yet he endows the superior potency, the living beings, with free will so that they can become responsible for the moral and spiritual quality of their decisions and activities. This entire transcendental science is clearly and rationally explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Here is the son of Bhoumasura. Frightened, he is approaching your lotus feet since you remove the distress of all who seek refuge in you. Please protect him. Please your lotus hand. Place your lotus hand which dispels all sins upon his head. Here the Bhumata seeks protection for her grandson who has been frightened by all the terribly violent events that just took place. Shukavacha 32 shloka Idi bhumyarthito vagbir bhagavan bhakti namraya datva vayam bhomograham pravishat sakalid bhavatu sakalid matu. Shukava Maharishi is telling iti. Now Shuka Swami says, thus entreated by goddess Bhumata in words of humble devotion, the Supreme Lord bestowed fearlessness upon her grandson and then entered Bhoumasura's palace, which was filled with all manner of richness. There, Lord Krishna saw 16,000 royal maidens, whom Bhoumasura had taken by force from various kings. Sridhara Swami provides the evidence from the sage Parashara, as quoted in the Vishnu Purana, to the effect that there were actually 16,100 royal maidens imprisoned in Bhoumasura's palace. Within the maidens' quarters, O wise one, that lord of unequaled prowess found 16,100 princesses. Another relevant verse from the Vishnu Purana is as follows. The demon Bhoumasura kidnapped the unmarried daughters of unmarried daughters of the gods, Siddhas, Asuras, and kings, O Janardana, and imprisoned them in his palace. The women became enchanted when they saw the most excellent of males enter. In their minds, they each accepted him who had been brought there by destiny as their chosen husband. With the thought, may Providence grant that this man become my husband. They were all telling their own mind. Each and every princess absorbed her heart in contemplation of Lord Krishna. The Lord had the princesses arrayed in clean, spotless garments and then sent them in palanquins to Dwaraka, together with the great treasures of chariots, horses, and other valuables. Airavata kule bhansya chaturdhantasturasvinah panduramcha chatushtastim preshayamasa Keshavaha. Lord Krishna, as called as Keshava here, also dispatched 64 swift white elephants, descendants of the Airavata, who each sported 4 tusks. 64 swift white elephants, descendants of the Airavata, who each sported 4 tusks. The Lord then went to the abode of Indra, the demigod's the king, God's king, and gave Mother Aditi's hearings. There Indra and his wife worshipped Krishna and his beloved consort Satyabhama. Then at Satyabhama's behest, the Lord uprooted the heavenly Parijata tree and put it in the back of the Garuda after defeating Indra and all the other gods. Krishna brought the Parijata to his capital, Dwarka. Stapitah Satyabhamaya Kruhodhono Pasheman Gatva Surendra Bhavanam Stapitah Satyabhamaya Gruhodhyanopa Pota Bhavanaha Anyagur Brahmaraha Surgat Tadgandasala Valampataha. Once planted, the Parijata tree beautified the garden of Queen Satyabhama's palace. Bees followed the tree all the way from the heaven, greedy for its fragrance and sweet swap. Yayacha anamya kirita kotabihi padau spushanna chatumartha sadhanam siddhartha etena vigrihatye maha naho turanam chamatamo digadatam digadyatam. Even after Indra had bowed down to Lord Achyuta, touched his feet with the tips of his crown, and begged the Lord to fulfill his desire, that exalted God, having achieved his purpose, choose to fight with Supreme Lord again. What ignorance there is among the gods! To hell with their opulence. It is well known that material wealth and power tend to produce arrogance, and thus an opulent life even can often be the royal road to hell. Then the imperishable Supreme Personality, assuming a separate form of each bride, Then the imperishable Supreme Personality, assuming a separate form of each bride, duly married all the princes simultaneously, each in her own palace. As Srila Sridhara Swami explains, here the word yatha indicates that each marriage was duly performed. This means that the entire company of the Lord's relatives, including his mother Devaki, appeared in each and every palace and attended each and every wedding. Since all these weddings took place simultaneously, this event was surely a manifestation of the Lord's inconceivable potency. When the Lord Krishna does things, he does them in a style. So it is not astonishing that the Lord simultaneously appeared in 16,100 wedding ceremonies, taking place in 16,100 royal palaces, accompanied in each palace by all his relatives. Indeed, this is the way one could expect the Supreme Personality of Godhead to do things. After all, he is not an ordinary human being. Srila Sridhara Goswami further explains that on this particular occasion, the Lord manifested his original form in each of his palaces. In other words, to take part in the wedding vows, he manifested identical forms in all the palaces. Gruheshu tasam anupayat krakaha nirastasam yatishyavistitaha reme ramavinajra kama sabbhukto yatatharo garhaka medikascharan. The Lord performed of the inconceivable constantly remained in each of his queen's palaces, which were unequaled and unexceeded by any other residence. There, although fully satisfied within himself, he enjoyed with his pleasing wives, and like an ordinary husband, he carried out his household duties. The word atrakrita is significant here. Tarka means logic. Atarka means that when it's beyond logic. The Lord can perform krit, that which is beyond mundane logic, and hence inconceivable. Still, the Lord's activities can be appreciated and understood to a significant extent by those who surrender to him. This is the secret of bhakti. Bhakti yoga or bhakti marga and bhakti yoga suggest you to appreciate Lord Krishna's opulences and simultaneously became 16,100 Krishnas to marry 16,100 girls in each palace. This is the secret of Bhakti Yoga. Srirama Sridhara Swami comments that the Lord was always at home except for when he had to go out to do ordinary household duties. And Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti points out that since in the Vaikuntha planets, Lord Narayana enjoys with only one goddess of fortune, and in Dwaraka, Krishna enjoys with thousands of queens, Dwaraka must be considered superior to Vaikuntha. In this regard, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti also quotes the following passage from the Skanda Purana. At that place, 16,000 gopis were assembled with Krishna, who is considered the supreme, the super soul, and shelter of all living beings. These gopis are his renowned 16 potencies. O goddess Krishna is like the moon. The gopis are like its faces, and the full contingent of gopis is like the full sequence of the moon's 16 faces. Each of these 16 divisions of gopis, my dear Varanganas, is subdivided into 1,000 parts. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti further quotes Kartika Mahatma section of the Padma Purana, Kishora Gopi Kanyas, Ta Yavane Raja Kanyakaha. Those who are the daughters of the cowards in their early youth become royal princes in their maturity. The Acharya adds, therefore, just as the Lord of Dwaraka is plenary expansion of the supremely complete Lord of Sri Vrindavana, so his principal queens are full expansions of his supremely complete pleasure potencies or gopis. Shloka number 44. Ittam Ramapati Mamapya Patim Striyastra Brahmadayo Shinuvidam Padavim Yadiyam Vejar Muda Viratame Dityanuraga Asabaloka Navasanga Majal Palajja. Those women obtained as their husband, the husband of the goddess of fortune, although even great gods like Brahma do not know how to approach him. With ever-increasing pleasure, they experienced loving attraction for him, exchanged smiling glances with him, and reciprocated with him in ever-fresh intimacy, replete with joking and feminine shyness. Although the Supreme Lord's queens each had hundreds of maid servants, they choose to personally serve the Lord by approaching him humbly, offering him a seat, worshipping him with excellent paraphernalia, bathing and massaging his feet, giving him pan to chew, fanning him, anointing him with fragrant sandalwood paste, adorning him with the flower garlands, dressing his hair, arranging his bed, bathing him, and presenting him with various gifts. Thus end the purports of humble servants of Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 59th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled the killing of the demon Narakasura. Iti Srimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Parahamsam Samhitayam Dashamaskande Uttararthe Parijata Harano Narako Vada Namaika Onishtitam Odhyayaha. 59th chapter finished. We are going to 60th chapter, where we can see the conversation between Rukmini and Krishna in tomorrow. Lord Krishna teases Queen Rukmini and consoles afterwards. That passage comes. Namostu Anantaya Sahasramurtaye Sahasrapadakshi Shirorabahuve Namasrasramne Purushashne Sahasrakoti Yugadarine Namaha Sahasrakoti Yugadarine Namaha Akashat Patitam Metagat Sagaram Sarvadeva Namaskaraha Sri Keshvam Pratyatyo Namaha Sarva Vedeshat Punyam Sarva Tirteshu Yatpalam Tatpalam Pushmapti Vasanat Vasadevasya Vasante Jagatrayam Sarva Bhuta Nivasosi Vasudevasute Kayena Vacha Mansendriyarva Buddhatmanama Pakrute Sabhavat Karomi Yaddat Sagalam Parasmai Narayana-yeti Samarpayami Narayana-yeti Samarpayami Hari Om Tat Sat Hari Om.